Okay, what's going on, guys? So this video right here is partially inspired due to some of the things that I've been seeing on the Discord of a good old sub of mine, Video Game Lover 58. Go sub to his channel as well. He makes good content. Uh, this is going to regard Outlaw Star, especially centering around the character Gene Starwind. Because lately what I've been seeing is a lot of misconceptions, and seems like people don't really appreciate the character of what Gene represents. So to start off, I'm not sure if this comment that I saw on Discord was on the channel Glass Reflection. This guy's, I forget his name, sorry. He did a review about Outlaw Star, I believe a couple of days ago, this past week of September. So he did a 15-minute review almost about the show in and of itself. But let me focus on this comment right here first, because I think this is one of the main reasons why people don't really like Gene Starwind, which is partially understandable. But let me go ahead and read this comment here. Okay, I'm not going to name this guy's name. I'll be sure to block it off. So he says, "What is wrong with Outlaw Star is simple. Gene Starwind is a man-child. Most of the time he acts like an adult, except when he gets in a little mood." My response to that is, that's partially true, but at the same time, a lot of different protagonists in anime act like that as well. Most notably, what I've been seeing with Dragon Ball Super and Goku, and his insistence on fighting the best. I don't think that's necessarily manly. That's something that, a young kid would do, always not having his way. And he has to insist on getting whatever he wants, that type of thing. A couple other characters that kind of act like that would be Luffy. Oh yeah, even Vash the Stampede, which I have another picture, if I can pull it up, of him and Spike Spiegel. But yeah, Vash the Stampede is another character I can think of that very much acted like a kid at times. All throughout that show. He had a serious badass moments, but yeah, there was still a lot of goofball, comical antics that he pulled all throughout that show. From drinking beer to following at girls. I mean, come on. It's kind of the same stuff that Gene did. So that's not a good excuse, in my opinion. It really isn't. It's not a good excuse at all. And speaking of what, like I said earlier with Vash and Spike, here's a gift that I found on the Discord. Here's the gift. Now, what is going on right here? What is going on right here? We got your boy Spike Spiegel, and to the far left is Vash the Stampede. They're both shooting at the bad guys, I suppose. But look what Gene's doing. Now, I forget who made this. Video Game Lover, you can tell me who did this right here. But look at this. Why is Gene running in the opposite direction? That is the $1,000,000 question. Now, what VGL was telling me was that, oh well, I didn't get the idea that he was running away. I was getting the idea he was like, screw this shit, I'm out of here. You guys take care of it. Okay, that's understandable, I suppose. But when I saw this, I was like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'm like, really? Are you implying that Gene's just always gonna run from a battle? Because I can tell you, all these guys run from dicey situations. Not every situation, because eventually by the end of the series, for each of these guys, they eventually fight the main antagonist, or the very person responsible for their trials and tribulations, right? But yeah, there are instances where even the great Spike Spiegel, I remember that one episode where he was fighting this penguin-like guy. He kind of looked like the character of Batman Penguin. I think his name was Piero. It sounds French, but you guys know what I'm talking about. I think it was episode 17. He's fighting him for the first time early in that episode, and he almost gets killed. I mean, he surprised Gene. I mean, not Gene, Spike. He surprised Spike. I was like, man, this guy is no joke, man. He was constantly laughing at him while he was trying to kill him. Yeah, Spike had to get out of there, man. He did. And then Vash right here, the very first episode of Trigun. I mean, yeah, he could easily beat that guy, but he was just playing with dude. But he was still running away from all his crossfire. There's tons of episodes of Vash is constantly running off. Another episode was when he was in that mansion. He was working with that blonde cop. She was like undercover and shit, and they were at that place. I think it was like a little short old man. It turns out he was selling. I think it was oil, and he was taking advantage of the townspeople by stealing off their water or whatnot. But yeah, he was shooting at Vash, and Vash was dodging all them bullets and running away, being silly. You know, so all these characters I just mentioned, they have their crazy antics, man, about them. That doesn't make them any different from Gene, and that doesn't take away from their development and how great the shows are. Okay? So calling Gene Starwind a man-child, that's just a cop-out. That's not a very good reason as to why the show is not as popular. Now, I'm going to get to another comment that pretty much does Gene's character justice. Okay, I found it. Here it is. This person said, I believe I like Gene as a character even more because of his flaws. Yes, he's arrogant and reckless, but he is skilled enough to pay it off most of the time. But he's still not too arrogant to be unpleasant. His dynamics with Jim work so well because while Gene comes off as immature sometimes and Jim as the voice of reason, other times their age difference is really evident as Gene has his moments as an aspiring adult figure. My thoughts exactly. Gene has enough support to where, he can eventually get out of his rut and take responsibility. And that's kind of what the show Outlaw Star was really about, kind of. Following your own path, following your dreams, taking life by the horns, being your own boss. Gene exemplified that over time through that show. And I think that's more evident. And here's another thing that ties into the whole man-child comment. You guys do realize Gene is just 19 in Outlaw Star, right? He's not 30. He's not 35. He's 19. He lost his dad at the age of 13. He was a teenager. He already knew how to fly a spaceship, even at that age, because that's what his dad did. He was a space pilot. So he was already trained to be a pilot. But ever since he lost his father, and he crash landed on Sentinel-3, and he pretty much had to grow up fast, kind of, just to get by in 6 years' time. And I guess somewhere along the way he does meet Jim, and they do grow a bond, because Jim is a kid himself. He's trying to survive him too. In order for them to survive, they had to work together, and they eventually formed Starwind Hawking Enterprises. So I say all that to say that, yeah, I mean, what were you going to do at 19 years old with no parental supervision whatsoever? No grown person telling you what to do and how to live your life. I mean, that's I'm surprised Gene wasn't a freaking criminal in Sentinel-3. I think it was noble of him to be a bounty hunter in a sense and just getting his own money by taking out the trash of Sentinel-3 at the age of 19. When he could have been a little ruffian himself, him and Jim. So I find that very commendable. So yeah, Gene, he has his little flaws, yeah, but he's still a stand-up guy, in my opinion, pretty much. And I think that's it's kind of unfortunate that people want to easily diss him, just because he was scared of space and he was lazy at times and things like that. I mean, God dog, the man's human. Like I said, I mean, he's just now getting out of the teenage years himself. And here's my buddy's comment right here, which is pretty much the real reason why, at least out here in the West, out in the United States, why Outlaw Star is not as talked about compared to a Cowboy Bebop and some of these other shows that's gotten tons of reruns off Toonami. It says the real reason Outlaw Star isn't well known, it barely gets reruns. How many times did Toonami rerun Bebop? A lot. Yeah, that's right. Bebop has pretty much gotten a rerun almost every other year, other than the brief time that Toonami was off air back in 2012. Or actually, it came back in 2012. From 2008 to 2012, that's when Toonami was off the airwaves on television. But since then, Cowboy Bebop, even to this day, It's still getting airplay. You know, Outlaw Star came back last year, got some airplay, didn't come back. So that was like the first, probably the first official rerun it had in like well over 16 years, I believe. 16 years, that is a long time. I mean, even Trigun got more airplay in between that time. Not nearly as much as Bebop, but even that show got, I remember in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, it got reruns. Okay, so there you go. I mean, Toonami just has a man crush on Bebop. I mean, that's evident. Anybody that says otherwise, you're kidding yourselves, or you just want to lie. And one last thing. This was on the Discord too. I believe this is an article off Crunchyroll's website that a video game lover showed me. Let me pull it up. And the title is "Has My Enjoyment of Outlaw Star Changed in 20 Years?" And it's by a guy named Jared Clemens. Basically, this guy goes on a diatribe on why his viewpoints have kind of changed over time since he first saw it as a kid to where he is now as a grown adult. And some of the reasons, man, I have to wonder about this guy's character. And from what BGL told me, he said this guy was a big fan of Attack on Titan. So let me get this straight. This isn't a diss to Attack on Titan or his fan base, but we're talking about a show that has some giant human-like figures, or they were once humans. They're running around, they're destroying villages with reckless abandon, and they're eating humans. They're catching humans, they're eating them up, they're pretty much digesting the humans. But, you know, you got a show where, you know, yeah, there's some cussing going on, and you got sexual perversions in the show. Oh, that's awful. That's so bad compared to big, giant, naked, humanoid titans eating off humans in a grotesque manner, by the way. Very violent. Oh, that's poetry in motion. Total poetry. But Outlaw Star, even with its base level sexual perversions and base level cussing, that's a problem. That's a problem. Make that make sense. Now look at this paragraph right here. Outlaw Star debuted on Toonami in January 2001 during the cusp of a particular anime boom in the US. Perhaps one of the biggest things I noticed when rewatching the series is absolutely astonishing that it was ever put on TV with a TV-Y7 rating. The amount of adult language, sexual content, violence, and mature themes that permeates each episode is high, which might explain why it seems so cool, as it was something that probably should have been on the air. What? Dude, really? What do you mean it should have been on the air back in the 90s? Back when things weren't so politically correct. What a snowflake paragraph this is. Unbelievable. And this guy's an Attack on Titan fan, y'all. He likes Attack on Titan. Like I said before. Ridiculous. And midway through this article, he talks about, Jared Clemens, he's talking about the atmosphere of the show, the bright colors, you know, as far as like going out of space and going to all these different planets and looking at the characters and everything. But get a load of this. Look at this one sentence. He says, with the cast of people that define themselves as outlaws, there are multiple instances of shades of gray surrounding everyone. Gene goes through a fascinating arc where we initially see him in panic-stricken to even fly in space after watching his dad get murdered by pirates. He eventually able to overcome that to pilot the Outlaw Star, but also pushes the question as if his lax attitude towards non-serious affairs is compensation of guilt relating to his father Melfina and his inability to help either of them. There's also dynamics throughout the series such as Aisha and Jim's sibling-like friendship and Gene being able to talk to Suzuka about personal issues he's dealing with. Well, as far as him getting over space, you know, you do realize that was the influence of Hot Ice Hilda. I'm not sure why you forgot that, man. Hot Ice Hilda is the reason why Gene was able to overcome his fear of space flight. He was able to get over that, especially after seeing her die. After he saw her die, he wasn't able to save her life. That's when he made the resolve that, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and take the ship and make it my own. How clearly you glossed over that is beyond me, man. Maybe you did that on purpose. I don't know. Maybe you did. We don't even know. You might have did that on purpose just just to make it seem like, you know, Gene, that oh, he shouldn't have never been like a top-notch pilot just because he was so scared of space. But way to totally gloss over that fact, sir. And later he finishes off by saying, nostalgia can be tricky to deal with as it can make you remember things better than they were, but Outlaw Star doesn't fall into that issue. It's not as amazing as I remember from being when I was 11. That's funny. I was 11, 12 years old when I first saw this anime too. Nor is it one of the best anime sci-fi you will see, but it's still fun almost 20 years later. And finally he asks, have you also gone through a rewatch of Outlaw Star and did it live up to your expectations of what you remembered? Let us know in the comments. Well, of course it did. You know what? I watched it prior to the television rerun. If you guys had YouTube downloader or ways to rip videos, I was able to save the series and watch it multiple times that way. So yeah, of course it lived to my expectations because I watched it more than once. And it wasn't on TV. It was online. If you was a real Outlaw Star fan, you would do the same thing I did. And that's all I gotta say about that. So anyway, that's all the documentation I have. Gene Starwind, you're still an awesome character. We got a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding of your greatness. You know, people don't really appreciate what you've done for the show itself. And we just came here to bring it a little bit of justice and to get people to understand. So anyway, that's it. You guys take care.